Hello everyone, my name is Kelly Johnson and I'm a Curriculum Officer at NCFE. My background is vocational education and I have 15 years of experience of working in the FE sector in various roles including a teacher, a curriculum leader and a curriculum operations manager. I specialise mainly in the subjects of sport, health and fitness, and I have educated young people from level 1 to foundation degree level including A levels. My role is to support centres through the planning, onboarding and CPD processes for NCFE and cash qualifications, but in particular the V Cert qualifications, with ultimately a focus on promoting and advancing learning. You're very welcome to this webinar, and in today's session we will examine the Level 1/2 Technical Award V Cert in the subject area of health and fitness. The plan for this webinar is to firstly provide you with an overview of this qualification. I'll then describe what the learners will study, the structure, progression opportunities, delivery models, assessment objectives and assessment objective weightings, the external and internal assessment summary, the quality assurance, grading the overall qualification and the grading calculator. I'll then explain in more detail the content of the external assessment and the internal synoptic project. I'll also explain the learning resources, teaching materials and support that is available to you and your centre. And lastly, there will be an opportunity to ask any further questions. Okay, I think we've got the votes in that we're going to get. So if I just close that, I can actually share the results of the poll with you. And as you can see, my expectation for the first question is that you'd all be at different stages in relation to your confidence. And it's really pleasing to see that some of you are really high up there and some of you are in the mid-range. So I would hope that by the end of this webinar, you are feeling more knowledgeable and confident about the structure and content of the Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness. So let us begin then with an overview of the V Cert Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness. Who is the qualification for? This qualification is designed for learners who want an introduction to health and fitness that includes a vocational and project-based element. The qualification will appeal to learners who wish to pursue a career in the health and fitness sector or to progress on to further study. The NCFE Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness complements GCSE qualifications. It is aimed at 14 to 16-year-olds studying Key Stage 4 curriculum who are interested in the health and fitness industry sector. This qualification is designed to match the rigour and challenge of GCSE study, and it is distinct from GCSE physical education as it encourages the learner to use knowledge and practical tools to focus on supporting people with specific health and fitness goals. The Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness is a vocational qualification which is designed to be completed by Level 1 and Level 2 learners. So if you have a mixed ability class, they will be taught the same content. The grading covers pass, merit, distinction and distinction star at both Level 1 and Level 2. And this qualification is endorsed by the Chartered Institute for the Management of Sport and Physical Activity, or CIMSA, and Fitter Food. This qualification is designed for learners who want an introduction to health and fitness that includes a vocational and project-based element, like I've just said on the previous slide. And it is appropriate for learners who are looking to develop a significant core of knowledge and understanding in health and fitness and how to apply it to their learning. This qualification has been designed to sit alongside the requirements of core GCSE subjects, and it's appropriate for learners who are motivated and challenged by learning through hands-on experiences and through content which is concrete and directly related to those experiences. Like I've said, it is distinct from the GCSE physical education as it does encourage learners to use knowledge and practical tools to focus on supporting people with specific health and fitness goals. The study of health and fitness involves understanding the functions of the body systems, understanding of the principles of training, knowing how the body reacts in the short and long term to fitness activities, how to create and apply lifestyle analysis tools, and how to create a fitness program for a person with specific goals. The qualification focuses on an applied study of the health and fitness sector, and learners will gain a broad understanding and knowledge of working in the sector. There are no specific recommended prior learning requirements for this qualification. This qualification has been developed for learners aged between 14 and 16 in schools and colleges, but is also accessible for post-16 learners. The Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness consists of an external assessment worth 40% and internally assessed coursework worth 60%. The content of both will cover Level 1 and Level 2 learners, so they will be given the same exam or external assessment and the same synoptic project. To achieve the NCFE Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness, learners must successfully demonstrate their achievement of all learning outcomes of the units as detailed in this specification. And the learning outcomes for each unit are provided in Section 3 of the qualification specification on QualHub. Learners must achieve a minimum of a Level 1 pass in the external assessment and the internal assessment to achieve the overall qualification. A partial certificate can be requested though for learners who don't achieve the full qualification but who have achieved at least one whole unit. And grades are awarded for this qualification. Total qualification time represents an estimate of the total amount of time that a learner is expected to spend to achieve the qualification. And the total qualification time comprises of the guided learning hours for the qualification and the hours spent in private study, preparation for assessment and undertaking the assessment. And on the slide, the table shows that the guided learning hours listed separately, which is 120, and the overall total qualification time is 157. The NCFE Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness complements GCSE qualifications, and as I've said, it is aimed at 14 to 16-year-olds studying Key Stage 4 curriculum who are actually interested in the health and fitness industry sector. Now, this qualification is designed to match the rigour and challenge of GCSE study, and you may be familiar with the chart that shows how the V Cert grading matches with the GCSE grading. Level 1 goes up to a maximum of a grade 3, which is equivalent with a distinction star, and the Level 2 distinction star is equivalent to a maximum of a grade 8.5. And it is the Department for Education that has set this as the maximum, as they want the top grades, i.e. the 9s, to be academic GCSE achievement only. V Certs, in particular the health and fitness, do fit into the open group or the third bucket for performance points. And this group can hold up to 3 qualifications depending on the qualification size and or weighting, etc. V Certs can be delivered alongside other qualifications, but please do bear in mind the discount codes applicable to each subject area. So for example, if you were doing a traditional GCSE in sport or PE, and we're also delivering our technical award in health and fitness with the same learners, then only one of those will count in the performance tables as the content is similar. There are various progression opportunities that this qualification can lead to, and depending on the grade the learner achieves in this qualification, they could progress onto Level 2 and Level 3 qualifications and or GCSE or A levels. So in relation to Level 2, if learners who achieve at Level 1 might consider progression to Level 2 qualifications post-16, such as a GCSE in PE, or they could study at Level 2 in a range of technical routes that may have been designed for progression to employment, apprenticeships and further study. Some examples might include Level 2 technical certificates in sport and physical activity, sport and activity leaders, exercise and fitness instruction, coaching sport and instructing physical activities, and physical activity and exercise science. Technical certificate qualifications provide post-16 learners with the knowledge and skills they need for skilled employment or for further technical study. In relation to Level 3, learners who achieve at Level 2 might consider progression to Level 3 qualifications post-16, such as Level 3 Applied Generals in Sport Studies, Sport and Physical Activity, Sports Performance and Excellence, and Sport and Exercise Science. And Level 3 Applied General qualifications prepare learners for progression to higher education in the health and fitness sector. And Level 3 Technical levels in Sport and Physical Activity, Personal Training, Fitness Services, Exercise Science and Personal Training for Health, Fitness and Performance, are to name but a few. Level 3 technical level qualifications prepare learners for progression into employment or onto an apprenticeship through specialising in a technical occupation in the health and fitness sector. Technical level qualifications provide post-16 learners with the knowledge and skills they need for skilled employment or for further technical study. And an A-level in physical education sport, this will support progression onto higher education. Learners could also progress into employment or into an apprenticeship, and the understanding and skills gained through this qualification could be useful to progress into an apprenticeship in the health and fitness sector through a variety of occupations such as health assistants, fitness instructors, or personal trainers. So in terms of delivery models, there is a 1-year, 2-year and 3-year delivery model to support the delivery of this qualification within your centre. Whichever delivery model you choose, it is still recommended that you register your learners ASAP and enter them into a selected external assessment. Please be aware of the booking cut-off dates, as fees can be incurred. An external quality assurer, or an EQA, is then allocated to your centre, and they are another valuable source of subject specialist support. As an example, in the Year 1 delivery model, you could begin to deliver Unit 1 in September and learners would sit the exam in November, both in the autumn term. In the spring term, the external assessment results would be available from November, and revision could be undertaken, if applicable, for the external assessment resit that would be undertaken in March. In the summer term, the external assessment results from March would be available. For Unit 2, in the autumn term, the internal assessments are released in December and learners could start the synoptic project brief. In March of the spring term is the first submission of the internal assessment, and the first EQA review or visit is available from April. Then in May of the summer term is the resubmission of the internal assessment, if applicable. A second EQA review or visit can be arranged for final sign-off if it was not completed in the first visit. And finally, also in the summer term, the centre can then claim the learner certificates. You will see that from the other delivery models on this slide that the key dates in each term will be the same, but you can decide when your learners undertake each assessment component. For further details on the delivery models, you can find this on the document that's called 10 Easy Steps to EQA that can be found on QualHub. The assessment of our technical awards is mapped against assessment objectives, or AOs. These AOs provide a consistent framework for learners and are applied synoptically, allowing learners to show their knowledge, understanding and skills from across a full breadth of the qualification. The AOs that will be assessed against the content in our technical awards are AO1, which is recall knowledge and show understanding. The emphasis here is for the learners to recall and communicate the fundamental elements of knowledge and understanding. In AO2, which is apply knowledge and understanding, the emphasis here is for the learners to apply their knowledge and understanding to real-world context and novel situations, including finding creative solutions. In AO3, which is analyse and evaluate knowledge and understanding, the emphasis here is for the learners to develop analytical thinking skills to make reasoned judgments and reach conclusions. In AO5, to demonstrate and apply technical skills and processes, the emphasis is for learners to demonstrate the essential technical skills relevant to the vocational sector by applying the appropriate processes, tools, and techniques. And lastly, AO5, which is to manage and evaluate the project, the emphasis here is for learners to develop the necessary skills of forethought, time management, self-reliance, and self-reflection. The table on this slide shows the approximate weightings for each of the AOs in the Health and Fitness Technical Award assessments, and you will also see how this equates to the overall weighting of the assessments of the 40 and 60% split. This qualification has 2 assessments, 1 external written examination and 1 internal synoptic project. The external assessment will be in the form of a written examination, which will assess the learner's knowledge and understanding of the content from Unit 1. A variety of assessment styles will be used, including multiple choice, short answer, and extended response questions. This will enable learners to demonstrate their breadth of knowledge and understanding of the subject and ensure achievement at the appropriate level, including stretch and challenge. Questions will be written in plain English and in a way that is supportive and accessible to all learners of all abilities. And as far as possible, real-world scenarios and contexts are used which are relevant to the sector. This is to engage and stimulate learners under examination conditions and to facilitate the drawing out of a wide range of knowledge and skills developed throughout their learning. All questions will be compulsory, with available marks clearly identified. And lastly, the written examination will be carefully constructed following a rigorous quality control process to ensure the assessment is valid. The table on this slide below shows the approximate weightings and the raw marks available for each assessment objective in the external assessment. It is based on an 80-mark external assessment, and our technical awards are modular, which means that a learner can take and resit external assessments in different assessment windows. External assessments, however, may vary slightly in levels of difficulty, and therefore what is represented at a level 2 pass in one assessment window may not be appropriate in the following assessment window. To resolve this issue, we convert raw marks to uniform marks. Now, the Uniform Mark Scale, or UMS, also allows us to account for the relative weighting of the assessment to the qualification as a whole. The UMS for the external assessment is shown on this slide. And in order to achieve the external assessment unit, learners must achieve an overall grade of a level 1 pass. NCFE sets these boundaries judgmentally following both qualitative and quantitative analysis and then converts them to a UMS. NCFE will then publish the raw mark grade boundaries following the completion of each assessment window, and these can be found in the Chief Examiner's report on QualHub. Synoptic assessment is an important part of high-quality vocational qualification because it shows that learners have achieved an holistic understanding of the sector and that they can make effective connections between different aspects they have studied. The Department for Education has consulted with awarding organisations and agreed the following definition for synoptic assessment. A form of assessment which requires a candidate to demonstrate that she or he can identify and use effectively in an integrated way an appropriate selection of skills, techniques, concepts, theories and knowledge from across the whole vocational area which are relevant to a key task. Synoptic assessment enables learners then to show that they can transfer knowledge and skills learned in one context to resolve problems raised in another. And to support the development of a synoptic approach, the qualification encourages learners to make links between elements of the course and to demonstrate how they have integrated and applied their increase in knowledge and skills from the beginning. And as learners progress through the course, they use and build upon knowledge and skills learnt across units. The internal synoptic project will test the learner's ability to respond to a real-life situation. This table on this slide shows the approximate weightings for each of the assessment objectives in the internal assessment. The internal assessment will be in the form of a synoptic project, which will be externally set by NCFE to ensure quality and rigour. A different synoptic project brief will be released every December and will comprise of a number of tasks which will assess the learner in each of the assessment objectives. We will carefully map and design the synoptic project brief each year to ensure comparability in the level of difficulty. Sample and past synoptic project briefs and a synoptic project learner portfolio can be found on the qualification webpage. Descriptors have been written for each assessment objective, and the descriptors are pitched at different levels in language and expectation and describe the learner's performance at that band. Assessors will use the descriptors to determine the banding decision for each assessment objective. This banding is based on the assessment of the final piece of work that the learner submits. Each assessment objective is weighted and contributes differently to the overall unit grade, and this is explained further in the webinar. If the learner has insufficient evidence to meet the Band 1 criteria of any of the assessment objectives, a grade of not yet achieved will be awarded for that assessment objective. And the format is the same for assessment objective 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So in terms of submissions and quality assurance, learners have a maximum of 21 hours to complete the synoptic project and will only have 2 submission attempts. Learners should submit the project when all tasks have been completed. The assessor will assess the project holistically, selecting the appropriate band for each assessment objective based on all the evidence that has been submitted. Once the work has been assessed, graded and internally quality assured, the unit grade should be submitted to NCFE via the portal. And this will be classed as the first submission, and the first submission date is by the 31st of March. The submitted unit grade will then trigger your first external quality assurance visit, which you can by all means arrange that prior to submitting your grades. And it is recommended that you plan this visit into timetables and confirm the date with your EQA at the earliest opportunity. Ahead of the visit, the external quality assurer will select a number of learner portfolios from which to sample assessment decisions and determine whether the descriptors have been applied consistently and in accordance with the qualification specification. If the external quality assurer agrees with the assessment decisions, they will bank all of the submitted grades. However, if the external quality assurer determines that the grading is too harsh, too lenient or inconsistent from one learner to the next, they will then reject the grades. In this situation, the centre would be required to assess, grade and internally quality assure all the learner work again. The EQA will then bank the resubmitted grades. Assessors at this point can then provide learners with feedback to support them with their second submission, should this be required. Centres are strongly advised to arrange a date early for a second visit with the EQA to ensure they receive the visit when they need it. So at this point, learners will then have the opportunity to resubmit the internal assessment after the first attempt, and this will be classed as the second submission. But it is for the same internal synoptic project assessment brief. The second submission should be used for learners who receive a not yet achieved for their first submission or wish to improve their grades. And the submission date for the second submission is by the 31st of May. Work that is revised and resubmitted by learners will again need to be assessed, graded, internally quality assured and submitted to NCFE, ready for a second visit from the EQA. If a learner receives a not yet achieved for the overall unit grade on the second submission, the learner will not achieve the internal assessment and therefore will not achieve the overall qualification grade. Only once the internal assessment unit grade has been banked and the external assessment completed will a centre then be able to claim certification of the qualification for the learners. I'm just going to pause there because I can see that there is a question in the question box. So will the EQA be remote this year, as the process you are describing is not what happened last year? Okay, very good question. Obviously last year with the process of tags and the pandemic, there was EQA activity that went ahead and that was undertaken with centres, but it was remote, so it was classed as a review. At this point, we can only say that we have to go by government guidance, and any that are taking place will be in line with government guidance. So as soon as we can, as soon as our EQAs can get out to visit centres to conduct those reviews, they will, but until advised, they will be remote. What I would suggest you do is once you've made contact with your EQA is just ask them how it will go. I hope that's answered your question. Okay, Andrea, thank you. And there's another question come through which I might as well answer now. So will the dates you mentioned remain the same for this? Okay. For what I'm talking about in this webinar is what we would refer to as business as usual processes. Obviously, if you are undertaking the synoptic project this year with your learners, then you will have seen, well, I hope you've seen the communication that it's essentially an extension of last year's criteria, where there isn't 21 hours, where those deadlines are not quite the same, although you have until the 27th of May for your final grade, and it's only that grade that is to be put on the portal. The actual submission attempts are managed within the centre, and it can also be completed remotely. I hope that answers your question, Dave. So I guess just to be clear, what I'm talking about here is a business as usual non-COVID year. Obviously, it's slightly our approach to awarding for 21-22 is in line with our approach to awarding 21-22 documentation that can be found on our website. And in particular, for the synoptic project, the usual way of working has been removed to obviously be in line with impact on learning and learning loss. And again, for the exams, what I'm talking about is for business as usual, but for this year, if you check out your external assessment, there have been additional opportunities added. Okay, so moving on. So the overall grade for the internal synoptic project is based on the combination of bands awarded for each of the assessment objective and the relative weighting of each assessment objective. To determine the grade achieved for the synoptic project, you can use the grading calculator, which is on QualHub. And I'm going to talk about the grading calculator in a bit more detail further in the webinar. But on here, you can place the learner's name and place the band achieved against each assessment objective. It then will calculate the grade that has been achieved for the synoptic project. And as you can see on this example, learner A, what they've achieved, the bands that they achieved were a 2, 2, 2, 1 and a 2, giving them an overall grade of a level 1 distinction. Whereas comparatively, learner B got 2s for every assessment objective and got a level 2 merit overall. And this actually just shows how important assessment objective 4 is, as it's weighted at 45%. So that is the only assessment outcome that learner B did better on, but they've jumped up 2 grades. Now, before you can let the learners know their grade, the work needs to go through the internal quality assurance process. For the overall final grade for the learner, the internal and external UMS grades are combined. And it's the UMS that is a fixed point system, and the UMS grade boundaries will never change. But what does change every year is how many marks in the external assessment equates to the UMS values. So the grading at this point is a compensatory system. So if a learner got a level 1 pass in the external exam, let's say 24 UMS, and got a level 2 distinction in the synoptic project, which is 240 UMS, then combined, that is 262 UMS, making their overall grade a level 2 pass. So they don't actually need to get a level 2 grade in both components to achieve a level 2 overall, but they do need to pass both elements to get a grade. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we do have the grading calculator, and to help assessors calculate the internal assessment grades and the overall qualification grades, we have created a grading calculator which is available on the qualification webpage under support materials. This can be used by the learner to track their performance and targets set themselves, or by the teacher to use for a full learner group or class as a grade tracking log. This will also assist assessors with benchmarking and target setting learners' grades following completion of the external assessment. On the grading calculator, there is a place to put the learner's exam grade so that you can determine their overall grade for the technical award. If you don't know their UMS but think you know what grade they may obtain based on mock exams, then you can place that in the provisional grade column. If they've sat their real external assessment, then you can put their actual UMS score into the actual exam grade column. If you use the provisional exam grade column, then the calculator will give you the maximum and minimum grade that the learners could get. If you use their actual exam grade, then it will calculate their actual overall grade for the level 1/2 technical award. Okay, next I'm just going to take a bit of a closer look at Unit 1, which is the external assessment. Unit 1 has 48 guided learn hours, which is important to consider if you are delivering to Year 10 or if you are delivering to Year 11 for the first time. The exam lasts an hour and a half with a total of 80 marks, and there are exam opportunities in November and March each year. So if you were beginning with Year 10, then it might be best to have the exam in March of Year 10 or of November of Year 11. The reason for this is because there is only one resit opportunity available. And again, this is obviously the guidance for business as usual. For this year, we do have additional exam opportunities in June. So if you're beginning with Year 11, then I would recommend having them sit the exam in November, so the resit is available for them in March. But obviously this will all depend on how much contact time you have with your class. On the external assessment timetable, it will also tell you the cut-off dates for registering your learners for the external assessment, and this is usually about 2 weeks before the exam. But again, please note that there are late fees if learners are registered late. And whichever exam they perform better in is the grade that counts towards their final grade. The Level 1/2 Technical Award, as I've said, does cover 5 assessment objectives, but it's the first 3 about using and demonstrating knowledge and understanding, and it is these that will be in the external examination. Now, as mentioned in the previous slide, the external assessment will cover the first 3 assessment objectives. And for health and fitness, 45% of the marks in the exam are for recalling and showing knowledge and understanding, whereas the higher order thinking of analysis and evaluation will account for 25% of the marks. And this allows the assessment to cover both level 1 and level 2 learners, and the style of questions is a mix of short answer, multiple choice, and longer response questions. Unit 1 is an introduction to the body systems and principles of training in health and fitness. In Learning Outcome 1, learners will develop knowledge and understanding of the structure and function of the different systems in the body and how they apply to health and fitness. Learners will examine the skeletal system, including the structure of the skeleton, functions of the skeletal system, types of bones, types of joints, joint actions, structure of a synovial joint, in particular the knee joint, and structure of the spine and posture. Learners will then examine the muscular system, and this includes types of muscle, the structure of the muscular system, muscle movement and contraction, and muscle fiber types. Learners will then examine the respiratory system, and this includes the structure of the respiratory system, functions of the respiratory system, and lung volumes. Learners will then move on to examine the cardiovascular system and includes the structure and function of the blood vessels, structure of the heart, the cardiac cycle, cardiovascular measurements, blood pressure, and energy systems. In Learning Outcome 2, learners will develop knowledge and understanding about the short and long-term effects of health and fitness activities on the body. And learners will examine the effects of health and fitness activities on the body, and it does include effects of health and fitness activities on the body, the short and long-term effects of health and fitness activities. In Learning Outcome 3, learners will develop knowledge and understanding of the terms health and fitness, the components of fitness, and how they apply to health and fitness activities. So when learners are examining the health and fitness components, it will include the health and fitness, components of fitness, health-related fitness, and skill-related fitness. In Learning Outcome 4, learners will develop knowledge and understanding of the principles of training and will be able to apply these to health and fitness activities. And learners will examine the principles of training and will include the principles of training and the principles of fit. Now, as far as possible, real-world scenarios and contexts which are relevant to the sector will be used, and this is to engage and stimulate learners under examination conditions and to facilitate the drawing out of a wide range of knowledge and skills developed through their learning. All questions should be attempted and available marks will be clearly identified on the paper. The external assessment will be in the form of a written examination, which will assess the learner's knowledge and understanding of content from Unit 1. And there are 3 main types of question on the external assessment. The first type of question is multiple choice, and they're usually 1 or 2 marks. Now, multiple choice questions cover assessment objective 1, like this one, from health and fitness, on the location of the bone in the upper leg. The second type of question is short answer, and they are usually around 4 marks. Short answer questions, such as this example, ask learners to outline the structure of capillaries and explain how this helps them to perform their function. And the third type of question is the extended response, and these questions are usually worth 6 marks or more, such as this one, which is to discuss whether an individual who is described as fit can also be described as healthy. The questions that are on the paper will enable learners to demonstrate their breadth of knowledge and understanding of the subject and ensure achievement at the appropriate level, including stretch and challenge. Next, we will have a look at the grading of the external assessment. And I've already talked about UMS, which is the Uniform Mark Scale, on a previous slide, but as a reminder, it is a method used to standardise the marking of papers across multiple exam windows by converting the raw mark out of 80 into a UMS score. The final grade in the external assessment is determined by converting the raw mark into a maximum UMS of 160, and a minimum of 24 UMS is needed to get a level 1 pass, and a minimum of a level 1 pass is required in both the external and synoptic project to obtain an overall grade. When we look at the grade boundaries from the most recent assessments, you'll see that in most cases, the recall of knowledge, which if you remember rightly is assessment objective 1, would have been enough to secure the learners a level 1 pass. The grade boundaries can be found within the Chief Examiner's report on the qualification page in QualHub, and as you can see, they haven't really changed much over the years. And where there has been a slight decline in November, I can only imagine that this is maybe the flip from online delivery and remote learning and the pandemic. But we'll soon see when we do some further analysis as further data comes in. So I'm just going to pause there to check the question box, see if we've got any questions. And I did see some coming in as I were talking. So there's one, what UMS is going to be given for tag? Okay, if you're referring to the tag grade that was given to learners last year as classed as mid-flight learners or learners that couldn't sit the exam, it wasn't actually a UMS that was attached in terms of what it is like now. What we did for exams in terms of fairness was we actually did a midpoint. So if they got, say, a pass, it would be the midpoint of the UMS and awarded a midpoint UMS rather than giving them a variation of UMS, because it does differ. So that was the fairest way that we decided that it could be done last year. So in terms of the UMS, although we awarded a midpoint UMS, their actual tag grade will just be their grade, if that makes sense. And if I remember rightly, from 92 to 113, I think the midpoint was like 103. So they would have been given 103, but actually what's banked in the system as their grade will be a level 2 pass. I hope that answers your question, Michael. Great, okay. Well, there doesn't seem to be any further questions come through, so I will crack on because I'm conscious of time. So I'm going to take a look at the synoptic project now, and it's the internal assessment will be in the form of a synoptic project, which I've already said, which will be externally set by NCFE to ensure quality and rigour. And a different number of synoptic project briefs are released every December and will comprise of a number of tasks which will assess the learner in each of the assessment objectives. Now, we do carefully map and design the synoptic project brief each year to ensure comparability in the level of difficulty. And as I've said, sample synoptic project briefs and a synoptic project learner portfolio at differing grades can be found on the qualification webpage, but I will discuss these in a little bit more detail further in the webinar. Now, from the 5 assessment objectives mentioned earlier, the synoptic project covers all of them. However, the biggest focus of the synoptic project will be on assessment objective 4, which is to demonstrate and apply technical skills and processes. And for health and fitness, assessment objective 4 is worth 45% of the final synoptic project grade. So in learning outcome 1 for unit 2, learners will develop knowledge and understanding of the impact of lifestyles and how it affects health and fitness. Learners will examine lifestyle factors, and this will include activity levels, diet, rest and recover, and other factors. In learning outcome 2, learners will develop understanding about how to test and develop components of fitness and how to apply this to the health and fitness activities. So learners will then examine fitness testing, and that will include health-related fitness tests, skill-related fitness tests, using data, training methods, optimizing a health and fitness program, heart rate training zones, and repetitions and sets. In learning outcome 3, learners will develop understanding about lifestyle analysis and how to apply this to people with specific health and fitness goals. And learners will examine health and fitness analysis and goal setting, and also will include health and fitness analysis tools and goal setting. In learning outcome 4, learners will understand how to structure a health and fitness program. And this will include the session card, warm up and cool down, the main activity session, and health and safety. Now, the project itself, since it is synoptic, must have all the content and assessment objectives delivered prior to beginning the project. The project can only be done in the learner's final year, so the year that the learners will be certified. Learners have a maximum of 21 supervised hours and must be undertaken independently. And formal supervision is required, so no feedback or guidance can be given to the learners at this point. The project can take place during regular scheduled lessons, or a centre can block out time for learners to complete it. NCFE do set the assessment, so the tasks and brief of the synoptic project itself can't be changed or altered in any way. And any research the student carries out must be suitably acknowledged or referenced, and it can be used to assist them with the undertaking of the project. They can also use any of their teaching and learning materials from the lessons, etc., but these materials cannot be submitted as the evidence. Learners can also adjust and change their work, but it can't be a result of feedback or hints or guidance from the teacher. Once the synoptic project has been completed, their evidence must be securely stored, and if this is on an intranet system, it must be in a secure and protected file, and the learner log is to be completed to validate and authenticate their work. This next slide is an example synoptic project for the health and fitness from 2019, and it had a scenario of being an apprentice fitness instructor in a gym who had to work with clients to review their current fitness levels. And the brief included tasks like creating, administering and evaluating a lifestyle questionnaire, as well as showing understanding of what is meant by muscular strength and speed, and to find ways of testing these and then carrying out those tests. Now, the evidence produced usually does have a range of options available unless stated otherwise, such as leaflets, written reports, posters, presentations and so on, but most centres do opt for some form of digital evidence. Now, the learner log is something that the learners must complete during their project, and they will need to keep a record of the different activities they did and the resources and time they dedicated to it. And at the end, they will evaluate their project as a whole. And this will allow learners to achieve assessment objective 5, which is worth 10%, and this is to manage and evaluate their project. When it comes to assessing the synoptic project, like I said, it should be done holistically. You will be judging the project as a whole, and it will be assessed against each of the assessment objectives. Now, descriptors have been written for each assessment objective, and assessors will use the grading descriptors to determine the banding decision for each assessment objective. The students will be able to see these grading descriptors as they are also included in the synoptic project brief. and there are 4 bands in total that can be awarded and not yet achieved, and that essentially is if they haven't written anything. Band 1, Band 2 and Band 3. Now, as our mission is to promote and advance learning, we do have several resources available to help and support you with that. And the key area for support will be QualHub. Qualhub.co.uk will be your primary go-to, where you can search for all our qualifications, in particular health and fitness, and access the specification, assessments, teaching materials, regulations and much more. And if you begin typing your qualification subject area or the qualification code, it will give you a suggested list of qualifications. But let us begin though by focusing on some of the teaching materials that are available on QualHub and are free of charge to download. We have schemes of work which completely outline entire units of work based on 1-hour lessons. There are also individual lesson plans for each presentation with suggested timings, lesson aims, learning outcomes and suggested assessment activities. We also have complete PowerPoint presentations covering the teaching content from the specification and includes teaching activities that could be used with your learners. And finally, there is a workbook and individual worksheets to accompany these lessons, or they can be used as homework or flipped learning opportunities. It's whatever you decide. And as with all these resources, it is best to use them and adjust them to suit the needs of your learners. So using actual assessment material is a good way to make revision effective, and the material I'm going to show you now is also available free of charge. We do have end of topic tests which are available for health and fitness and contain multiple choice questions and answers. For every qualification, you will find past papers or sample exam papers, and you will also find mark schemes and they will say which assessment objectives are being addressed by which question. Furthermore, the Chief Examiner's report, which I've already mentioned, can be found in the assessment materials on QualHub and does provide an insight into how learners perform nationally on different questions. So, for example, which questions had strong answers, which were answered incorrectly, and what were the common errors, which I do think will help inform your future teaching and/or revision sessions. And there are also some exam prep exercises for different questions, but mostly for the extended response questions. For the health and fitness extended response questions, there are worksheets that also include model answers which can be used to improve learners' achievement. And the example here is a 9-mark question about muscle fibres, and there are some tips about how to address it, as well as different activities the learners can work through, such as mind mapping, organising their knowledge into tables and so on. And these can be useful for exam preparation and revision and determining which method your class or learners might find most effective. We also do have past sample projects which can be accessed, and we have sample learner portfolios. And due to the content crossover with the synoptic project and the external assessment, some of the exemplar portfolios can also be used for revision. Within the events section on QualHub, there are various V Cert training events that you are able to access, including assessor and quality assurance training, prepare to teach events, or one-to-one consultations and much more. Another useful section within the V Cert training events is the support webinars, such as this one. Our support webinars are free to register and attend and are delivered by our dedicated provider development team and subject matter experts. The webinars that include onboarding webinars, which will provide information on the delivery and assessment of the health and fitness qualification, and CPD webinars, including external preparation and revision strategies, synoptic project preparation, marking and assessing and moderation, formative assessment strategies, effective feedback, stretch and challenge are to name but a few that we have available. And you can also access our previous training sessions from our on-demand recordings on our YouTube channel, which I'll go through on the next slide. So as mentioned on the previous slide, there are also some on-demand webinars for online teaching tools, revision strategies, formative assessment, stretch and challenge, effective questioning, providing effective feedback, and digital skills, again, to name but a few. And these can be found on the NCFE YouTube channel, and we've created a V Certs playlist to make finding our webinars easier. There are also on-demand bite-sized introduction webinars that include the Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness. And these short webinars cover an overview of the qualification, the external assessment, the synoptic project, and the available resources. Another useful tool, which is part of the NCFE group, is Skills Forward. They are one of UK's leading e-learning software and assessment solutions for functional skills, GCSEs, apprenticeships, and employability skills. The unique assessments, resources, and summative assessments can transform how education providers approach functional skills, GCSEs, and the employability skills development of learners. But in terms of V Certs, though, the most useful part of Skills Forward is probably Skills Portfolio. Now, Skills Portfolio allow learners to submit evidence and keep records of their work, which will allow centres to manage, monitor, and assess their learners remotely. The assessor is also able to upload evidence for the learners too, so for example, witness statements for any of the internal assessments. It can also allow for easy management of the quality assurance process too, and complies with the Ofsted and Educational Skills Funding Age requirements, giving you the evidence needed during inspection. iAchieve and GSCEPod are useful third-party sites which have been endorsed by NCFE, and they are both specifically cover the NCFE Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness. iAchieve is an online learning platform which has content specifically designed for the Health and Fitness Technical Award. And GSCEPod contains a series of short videos or pods summarising aspects of the curriculum. And it allows you to teach and assess the learners very easily, so you can monitor their progress and provide individual interventions if needed. Aside from the skills learners will gain from the V Cert, we also have developed a suite of resources to support the wider curriculum and skills that learners will need. And these include 32 sessions, each lasting 2 hours, and they cover personal, social, health and economic education, study skills, and employability and career skills. And these packs, if you're interested, can be found within our teacher materials on QualHub. So as we come to the end of the webinar, I would just like to do another quick poll to see how confident you're now feeling with the structure and content of the V Cert Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness, with 1 being no to little confidence and 10 being very confident. I'm just going to close that then and share the responses. So from my point of view, this is really pleasing to see that we've definitely got the 62% there that are feeling a 9 to 10, 31% 7 to 8, and 8% who are feeling 5 to 6. Now, I'm not sure if they did the poll at the start, and if you're still 5 to 6, then that's okay. Then if you need to contact me after the webinar, or if you want to ask any further questions shortly, you're more than welcome to, because what I really would want is that everyone feels much more confident with the structure and content of the health and fitness qualification. But I do appreciate there is a lot of information to digest in this webinar. So thank you for your time today. I just wanted to know if there are any further questions. I will check to see if there are any further questions come through. There hasn't of yet, but I will stay on the webinar for the remaining minutes, so about 3 minutes. Thank you for attending the webinar, and if you do have any questions, either after the session or when they come to mind, then please do feel free to get in touch with me directly using my email, kellyjohnson@ncfe.org.uk. If I am unavailable, then our general email is provider.development@ncfe.org.uk. And also do visit ncfe.org.uk/vcert for more information on our technical awards, in particular for health and fitness. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, I have also included some useful references on this slide for you to refer to if you require further information or support. Otherwise, please do feel free to leave the webinar, and I'd really appreciate if you could complete the evaluation that will pop up to help us improve the service that we offer. Thanks again, everyone, and on behalf of everyone here at NCFE, stay safe. Hi Ben, I've just seen your question come through. So is it necessary for us to use the grade calculator if we use Core 45 schools already. I'm aware that the grades may not match up to the UMS. You don't, not at all, Ben. You don't have to use the grade calculator. Although I would be aware that it would be useful to use the UMS guidance within the specification just to make sure it does marry up, and the chief examiner's report. If you're looking to look at what UMS that the learners might get if they were to do a mock exam. But certainly for the synoptic project, I would certainly look at the specification just to make sure that the UMS correspond. But no, by no means do you have to use our grading calculator, not if you're already using something else. It's just there as an additional resource if you haven't already got something to use. I hope that answers your question.